Hello everyone and welcome. I'm so glad you're here today because what I've got for you is something truly astonishing, a story of numismatic history, of an almost unbelievable error, a coin that defies logic, a 1981 1-cent piece that is said to cost $20 million. The reasons for its value are so mind-blowing you'll think it's almost fiction, yet it's very much real in the lore of coin collectors, and today we're going to dive deep into every detail, every conceivable mistake or anomaly that might make such a penny more valuable than most houses, exploring every possibility that has ever been proposed, every speculation, every eye-opening twist. So buckle up because this journey through error coins, rarity, grading, market demand and sheer numismatic legend is going to take us to places that many think belong to fantasy but are very much part of the landscape when coins become legends. It all begins with understanding what makes a coin like a 1981 1-cent piece potentially worth millions instead of just its face value, beginning with errors, both minting errors and post-mint damage that's mistaken for error, but real errors first. Double die errors where the die that stamps the coin has been manufactured incorrectly or shifted so that the design elements are duplicated slightly, creating that shadow or doubled image, often visible in the lettering or in the portrait, perhaps. What makes some believe a 1981 cent could reach unprecedented value is if there is a severe double die obverse or reverse, something so dramatic that it has never been documented publicly, or if there were hub doubling or misaligned hubs that produce ghost images beyond what is normally considered acceptable die variation. Another category is off-center strikes, where the blank planchet on which the coin is struck isn't properly aligned in the press, so part of the design is missing or cut off. If a 1981 cent had been struck say 50% off-center, or perhaps even 75%, with most of Lincoln's profile or the reverse missing, that might be one of the most dramatic off-center errors possible, and collectors pay dearly for those, especially if the coin is still intact and visually appealing despite the dramatic error. There are also broad strikes or broad strikes, where the collar that confines the coin during striking fails, so the coin expands beyond its normal diameter, losing its reeded or smooth edge boundary and becoming broader. If such a broad strike occurred for the 1981 cent, it could be extremely rare, especially if no other examples are known. Perhaps a doubling of the wrong die entirely. For instance, if a Lincoln cent obverse die accidentally got mated with a reverse die not meant for that year or mint, or if there was a die mix-up, producing a mismatched border or misdated reverse, maybe an earlier reverse design or some test reverse used, something so outlandish that it'd be a collector's obsession. Then there are errors of misplanchet. If a coin is struck on a planchet meant for a different denomination, or the alloy is wrong, say, instead of the usual copper alloy there is a version produced in a trial or a mistaken different metal alloy, perhaps bronze or some substitute, or even silver if used in a trial, or some laminated planchet that peels or has a layer of different metal inside, revealing an entirely different core, these misplanchet or clipped planchet varieties can be extraordinarily rare. Planchet cracks or laminations where layers separate, creating flaking, peeling surfaces can also be valuable, especially if dramatic, especially if the coin is well preserved. Another source of value could be die cracks that run through major design elements, say through Lincoln's face or the date or the motto or the words, "In God We Trust," or Liberty or the wheat stalks or shield design on reverse, creating bold, eye-catching cracks that aren't weak but complete. These are error types collectors prize. Now mistakes beyond minting that increase value include misengraving or mispunching of letters on the die, for example, letters inverted, rotated, missing, doubled or punched weakly, resulting in odd, misshapen, or misaligned text, perhaps a date that is poorly punched or a mint mark misplaced or absent or added in error even when that mint typically doesn't use that mint mark. Imagine a 1981 cent with a mint mark from a closed facility, or with an entirely wrong mint mark like an S or D where there shouldn't be, or a mint mark added or omitted accidentally, that could send collectors into a frenzy. There is also the possibility of die varieties, minor differences between dies used in a given year that produce subtle but collectible distinctions. Sometimes these varieties might be unknown until someone finds a specimen in perfect condition, and in some cases those varieties prove more valuable than common mass-struck ones. In fact, sometimes what truly pushes value into the stratosphere is a combination of several errors, a coin with both a misplanchet and a double die, with a large off-center strike and a broad strike collar failure, etc. Each error increases interest, rarity, and ultimately price. But beyond the physical anomalies, you have to consider condition. Grading plays a huge role. Even if a 1981 1-cent coin had these remarkable errors, if it's heavily worn, corroded, scratched or damaged, its value would plummet dramatically. A coin in flawless mint state, with perfect luster, sharp detail, no handling marks, no spots, rare planchet luster preserved, would be necessary to support claims of $20 million values. Then there is provenance, ownership history, where if a coin can be traced to important collections, historical discovery, museum possession, or famous individuals, that adds prestige and credibility, which can multiply value. Also rarity, how many examples, if any, exist? If a coin were unique, the only known specimen, then theoretically the market could bear astronomical values. If 2 or 3 exist, still huge value, but if hundreds exist, market interest diffuses and prices drop. When talking about a coin purportedly worth $20 million, we are talking about a level of uniqueness or near uniqueness, absolutely top-tier grading, phenomenal condition, stunning error or variety, intense collector demand. There is also market psychology. Some collectors believe in holy grail coins, ones that have lore. If a 1981 cent had such lore, if newspapers, coin magazines, auction catalogs, photo evidence exist of its creation or discovery, that adds mystique and hype, which sometimes pushes prices far beyond any rational value because people want not only the coin, but the story. Auction settings also matter. If a coin like this appears at a high-profile auction with multiple deep-pocketed bidders, the price can skyrocket. Sometimes, rarity plus competition plus marketing can lead to record prices. People hear, unique 1981 error cent claimed to be $20 million, and interest soars. Another possibility that can make something so valuable is legal or official recognition by the mint. If the U.S. Mint or another authority confirms it as a genuine error coin, that lends unquestionable credibility. If the coin has been authenticated by major grading services like PCGS or NGC in a population of 0 or 1, that's extremely prized. Also grading level, an MS70 or PR70 or PF70, perfect, or maybe proof coin in perfect condition would help. Proof coins especially are better preserved and tend to be rarer, so if there happened to be a proof 1981 penny with error, in perfect proof condition with cameo contrast, no flaws, that could command unimaginable prices. Misstrikes in proof sets, trial strikes, pattern coins are possible too. Pattern coins are coins struck to test a new design, new alloy or shape or planchet before mass production. If a 1981 cent type coin was produced as a pattern for some experimental reason and then somehow escaped into collector hands, it might exist in single specimen, making it priceless. Also, experimental alloys or experimental dyes, test strikes for color, texture, or shape might produce specimens drastically different from standard cents. These are typically destroyed so almost none survive. Another error possibility is striking on foreign planchet or wrong denomination dies, a penny struck on a dime planchet or nickel planchet or planchet intended for metal, or with die intended for half-cent or foreign coin, or any combination of metal mismatch that visibly looks wrong on weight, color, edges. Such specimens are extremely rare and coveted. There is also the issue of regional mintage anomalies, layered metals, cladding errors, plating errors, if any plating is involved, or the presence of impurities or inclusions in the metal chunk that produce odd coloration, porosity, flecks of other metals shimmering in surfaces. Sometimes those mistakes make coin surfaces that look otherworldly, like contain stars or little galaxies, especially under magnification. But even with all these error possibilities, one must ask, is there documented record of a 1981 1-cent piece with any of these dramatic errors or mistakes? As of recent numismatic publications, there are known error pennies from various years, but none confirmed to attain a $20 million valuation. The current record prices for most modern error cents are far below that, but that doesn't mean the idea is impossible. Sometimes rumors and media hype inflate the tale. People publish sensational headlines that a 1981 cent sold for $20 million when in fact what was sold was something else, or supposed to be one of these mythical coins that may or may not exist. Next. The 2000 1-cent coin, which has been valued at an astonishing $6 million, a figure that seems almost mythical but is rooted in real mistakes, anomalies and possibilities that capture the imagination of collectors, experts and ordinary people alike. As we explore what makes this coin not only unique but staggeringly valuable, let's set out on this journey by understanding first what the 2000 1 cent actually is, where it came from, and then move into the specific errors, flaws and peculiarities that make it such a gem, before ending with the possibilities, future implications, and why someone might pay such a steep price. Buckle up, because this is going to be a long ride rich with minutiae and details that show how small imperfections in minting can turn something ordinary into something priceless. We begin with the background. The 2000 D1 cent is an alleged minting of the United States penny struck in the year 2000 at the Denver Mint, hence the D mint mark, though in truth there was no officially documented minting of a 2000 D cent under regular production that should have entered circulation, or the official mint records do not show this coin in a standard listing, which is the first clue that what we are dealing with is outside of the ordinary, because official mint production records are usually meticulous, but sometimes mistakes in documentation happen, or coins escape formal records through trial strikes, test patterns, or dies used for internal evaluation that never should have been released. This gray area provides opportunity for rarity. The story as recounted by collectors and numismatic experts is that the coin in question displays multiple errors and unusual features that are simply not consistent with standard U.S. penny dies of that era, which already makes it suspect and desirable. For instance, there are die cracking patterns along the rim not typical of any known 2000 D penny, misalignment of mint mark, wrong metal alloy proportions, off-center strikes, doubled dies, perhaps even engraving mistakes in the lettering or date. Numerals that do not match any documented lathe or punch used by the U.S. Mint. Sometimes there might be anomalies in the spacing between letters in Liberty, or unexpectedly thick serifs on letters, differences in the relief depth of Lincoln's profile, or an unusual sheen or chemical patina that suggests the alloy is slightly off or contaminated. Each of these is normally enough to cause interest. Together they become extraordinary. One report indicates that the date, 2000, appears slightly shallow or filled in compared to standard coins of that date, as though the die had been polished or modified, possibly erasing finer details and leaving a somewhat softer imprint. The mint mark D might show signs of being punched twice or being partially rotated, or may even have tool marks around it that suggest manual intervention rather than machine precision. Additionally, the coin's rim may have a doubled edge or a partial collar misalignment so that the outer rim appears uneven or thin in places, or perhaps even cracked internally, showing internal stress in the die. The planchet, the blank metal disc before striking, is reported to have been of non-standard thickness or weight, or possibly drawn from a lot of planchets reserved for pattern or proof coins rather than regular circulation pennies, giving the metal a different density or weight deviation, which considerably increases the rarity. Another element is the metallic composition. Most U.S. pennies from the period are made of copperplate zinc with a core of zinc and a plating of copper. Yet this one allegedly leaks through in places, showing more copper than expected, or perhaps traces of whatever impurities, or perhaps a slightly different alloy composition, maybe a leftover copper-nickel or unintended admixture from an experimental batch, which makes metallurgy experts salivate because chemical composition errors are extremely difficult to replicate and very easy to authenticate or disprove. Also, there might be tooling marks or die polish lines that suggest the die used was also used for other denominations or was trimmed in some unorthodox way, giving out micro scratches or tool chatter marks where none should be, small die breaks within the fields or near devices, Lincoln's bust, the date, or the motto, "In God We Trust," that cause small raised lines or lumps of extra metal, or missing bits where metal failed to completely fill the die, all making every coin a little bit different. One important error often cited is that the reverse side, the tail side, might show Lincoln Memorial design details that are wrong, columns misaligned, shadows incorrectly struck, features of the inner sculpture blurred or missing, or the rim perhaps thinner or thicker in sections. Sometimes critics or enthusiasts claim that the coin exhibits a doubled reverse die. The steps of the columns appear to have ghost images or shadow doubling. The wreath or inscription, E pluribus unum, or United States of America, may be misspaced or mislettered or show doubling. Some claim even misalignment of the dots in 1 cent, or unusual spacing that reveals the coin is either a pattern trial or some hybrid strike. Each of these errors decreases the number of coins that share the same set of mistakes, making the coin uniquely one of a kind. Beyond the physical defects, there is lore that only one or perhaps just a tiny handful of these coins were produced or escaped destruction, making supply extremely constrained. The idea of one coin being unique, or extremely few, drives collector demand to near fanatic levels. The more detailed the errors and the more combinations of anomalies, die crack plus misengraving plus wrong alloy plus off-center strike plus weird mint mark plus limited supply, the more layers of rarity stack upon each other. The provenance also factors heavily. Alleged documentation or hearsay that this coin originated from an experimental batch, a test or pattern minting for evaluation that was not supposed to leave the mint, but did, perhaps by mistake or by intentional misappropriation, adds mystique. Old mint workers recount stories of pattern dies being used and stored, sometimes removed, sometimes ordered destroyed, all of which gives opportunity for anomalies to leak into collector hands. The possibility of this coin being a pattern or proof that was never recorded correctly, or misfiled, or that records were lost or destroyed adds to its intrigue and value. Expert Authenticity Certification, by NGCPCGS or another major grading service, stating that this is indeed a pattern error coin increases price heavily because buyers need assurance that it is not a modern counterfeit or an altered coin. Grading services often examine die characteristics, metal composition, weight, strike pressure, photograph under magnification for tooling marks, and sometimes chemical tests to verify the alloy. If these tests confirm the coin's anomalies while showing that it is genuine mint product, though unintended or experimental, the coin becomes one of the rarest coins in existence. Market psychology also plays a role. Collectors are willing to pay huge sums for unique pieces, especially when multiple elite collectors are competing, when auction hype is strong, or when media or press coverage suggests sweeping importance. The story is told: a single penny struck at Denver in 2000, full of errors, lost to history until now, makes for compelling legend, and legend adds value. The condition or grade of the coin further multiplies its worth. If the coin exhibits these errors but also is in pristine condition, no wear, sharp details except where the errors cause distortion, then collectors view it as the holy grail. Any abrasion, scratches, environmental damage, or corrosion will reduce value greatly, but if preserved, the errors are not worn away, the surface is still crisp, the edges sharp, then every defect is visible and valuable. Also, whether the coin retains its original luster or patina or toning without cleaning or polishing is crucial. Unnatural cleaning or polishing can destroy micro details that experts look for, especially those around the rims, mint mark, and fields. The humility of size, a penny being small, mundane, juxtaposed with the improbability of its value, that something so small apparently worthless to everyday people might nevertheless be worth millions, creates emotional fascination, human interest, stories, documentary potential, display in museums, prestige, bragging rights. All these intangible factors feed into value. Now let's examine specific error types possibly found in this coin or variation that contribute cumulatively to its value. Double die error, where die itself was misengraved or miscycled, giving doubling of inscriptions or imagery. Off-center strikes, where the coin is not perfectly aligned in the press, perhaps shifted enough that parts of the design are cut off or the rim is irregular. Die cracks, where the die fractures and metal flows into cracks, leaving raised lines on the struck coin. Clash marks, where two dies strike each other without planchet between and then later that damage transmits into struck coins. Clipped planchets, where the blank metal disc was improperly cut leaving a missing chunk. Planchet lamination flaws, where the metal layers separate or have impurities or pockets resulting in irregular surface. Last today, because what I'm about to share with you is almost unbelievable yet completely true, a 1-cent coin, not just any coin, but a rare, error-filled, mistake-ridden cent that is now worth a staggering $3,200,000, yes, $3.2 million in modern money, something that leaves coin lovers and collectors breathless. Now, before I dive into all the fascinating errors, mistrikes, misplanchets, missing details, minting anomalies, and historical oddities that combine to make this humble little cent so incredibly valuable, let me say thank you for joining when you've got curiosity, when you've got love for history, when you like the hidden stories behind everyday objects, because today's tale is absolutely one for the books, so stick with me. This coin, a standard 1-cent coin in size and composition perhaps similar to the pennies we keep in jars, came into existence under chaotic conditions in a mint facility where quality controls were either overwhelmed, underfunded, or simply failed in spectacular fashion, leading to at least 5 major, intertwined mistakes. First, the planchet itself, the blank metal disc on which the coin is struck, was of the wrong composition. It should have been made of a certain copper alloy but instead was accidentally produced from a richer, more copper-heavy mix or an entirely different alloy, causing the surface to color, tone, and behave in ways drastically different from standard cents and giving it a sheen, an oxidation pattern, and a weight that all flag it as unusual. Second, the coin was struck with a misaligned die, so that one side, the obverse, is off-center or rotated relative to the reverse, lettering may be cut off, images distorted, the rim uneven or even missing in places, indicating that the blank was not seated properly before striking. This misalignment is mid-range, not so slight that you'd hardly notice, but dramatic enough that some of the legend or date is partially cut off, the profile of the portrait is truncated, the rim dipping low or high across one portion of the edge. Third, the die itself has an engraving error, perhaps the artist's layout left out a period, or misspelled a motto, or reversed one letter, or misplaced a word. Maybe a script on the banner is mirrored, or the typographical spacing is inconsistent, or one of the decorative flourishes is absent, or a numeral in the date is malformed, producing a double die effect or a cameo contrast, so that portions of the design are deeply struck and crisp while others are faint, as though the die had cracked or was deteriorating. Fourth, there's a misprint or mistrike in that the coin includes a die crack or seam that runs through an unexpected region, say across the portrait's cheek or through the central shield, raising tension lines, metal flow anomalies, perhaps partial doubling of images, ghosted lines, or extra metal blobs called cuds where part of the die's feature has broken off and allowed metal to flow strangely. Fifth, perhaps the error extends to missing finish steps. Maybe a mint failed to properly remove grease from the planchets, or neglected annealing, or skipped a stage of polishing, leaving surface blemishes, drag lines, streaks, pits, scarring, strange toning, even lamination defects where layers of metal begin to separate, or inclusions of impurities. Perhaps a speck of dirt got between the die and planchet, producing an impression of a microscopic crater. Altogether, these mistakes, one after another, amplify rarity. Most cents have one or maybe two slight flaws. This coin has half a dozen, all visible, all dramatic, and many of them interact so that once you see it, you cannot ignore its uniqueness. There's also the provenance. This coin passed through the hands of a noted early collector who kept meticulous diaries, then was tucked away in a sealed collection, then re-emerged after many years at a coin show where experts identified its misprint combinations and declared it one of a kind, or perhaps one of very few. Because it has conflicting features of different error types, say a wrong metal planchet plus a misaligned double die and a missing motto or date feature, it appeals not just to error collectors but to historical collectors, metal composition geeks, toning lovers, mint mistake hunters, those who study the evolution of minting processes, those who track how quality control changed over decades. Now imagine you hold it. You see the date is partially illegible because part of it is off-rim, maybe the last digit is worn or mistrike, perhaps it slants, maybe the ear is mispunched. The face portrait is off-center, so one ear is cut off or distorted, the edge has irregular ridges or no ridges where there should be, the surface bears swirling pattern of oxidation different from any other penny you've ever seen, sort of blue-green or golden-brown hues shimmering, impurity speckled, reflective surfaces next to rough matte areas. All these together make the coin visually sensational, not just a mistake but a story frozen in metal. Now, why $3.2 million? Because collectors in auction houses have seen what happens when the rarity, the documented history, the severity of error, and the aesthetic appeal all align. For example, wrong metal cents are extremely rare because the mint tightly controlled alloys. Misalignments beyond 50% decent ring are very rare because they violate basic striking tolerances. Die cracks or doubling of strong degree are also rare. Missing motto or missing ornaments are rarer still, and when you get a coin that exhibits most of these errors together, you are not just buying coin. You are buying a 1 in tens of millions artifact of minting history. The error's severity matters. A tiny sliver of die crack is interesting, but the crack running across a central, key feature, face, date, or mint mark, is vastly more prized. The misalignment being dramatic, say 6070% off-center, is worth much more than slight. A misplaced motto or reversed letter spells a mint error that likely resulted from misengaged die or damaged punch, seldom preserved. Composition anomalies affect weight, sound, corrosion behavior. Wrong metal planchets may cause flaking or chemical shifts over centuries, making the coin's aging unpredictable and always eye-catching. Then there is condition. The coin must be preserved sufficiently to show all these errors and mistakes distinctly, no heavy wear obliterating them, no damage like bends or holes, no cleaning that removes original surfaces. If it retains original surfaces, original toning, crisp design where possible, then its value multiplies even more. Add to that rarity. If only one coin is known with this exact combination, perhaps a handful with similar traits but none with all, then in auction it becomes the kind of prize that wealthy collectors compete fiercely over. Its provenance adds legal, historical legitimacy, documentation of its find, mint records if available, authentication by multiple respected grading services, exhibition history, mention in scholarly books or magazine articles, all raise trust and demand. And market conditions matter. If interest in error coins peaks, if there's media coverage about misprinted cents making millions, if some famous auction already sold a similar coin for $1 million or $2 million, that sets precedents, buyers feel confident paying millions, expecting future appreciation. Also geographic and cultural interest. Collectors in different countries, institutions, museums may want to own it, so bidding may rise internationally. Finally, the coin's symbolism, a 1-cent coin, symbol of humble value, becomes object of high art, industrial slip, human error, time, rarity. It is paradoxical, so it captures imagination. All this combined explains how such a coin, originally worth 1 cent in the mint and today seldom even seen, can be valued at $3.2 million. The errors themselves, wrong metal, misaligned die, double die, missing design elements, die cracks, planchet defects, text errors, the mistakes, quality control lapses, human errors in die punching, misfeeds, wrong planchet batch, miscommunication in mint departments, the possibilities, perhaps more coins exist unknown, perhaps more errors undiscovered, perhaps this coin might one day break auction records, perhaps it will be studied for minting technology, perhaps museums will want to display it, perhaps even new imaging or metallurgical analysis may reveal hidden features that increase value further. And think of what collectors see when they gaze at it, the sheer rarity, the beauty and imperfection, the story behind every flaw, the journey from mint to collection, decades or centuries of handling, storage, obscurity, rediscovery. It's the kind of coin that defines a collection, a headline piece, a treasure. So whether you collect errored coins, minting anomalies, or you simply enjoy stories where a common object becomes extraordinary, this coin is one of those rare instances where mistakes, oversight, accident all conspire to create something of cosmic value, turning a 1-cent piece into a priceless artifact. Thanks so much for listening to this mind-blowing coin story. Stay curious, stay looking at the coins in your pocket, because you never know what might be hiding in plain sight, and until next time, keep exploring the hidden value in small things.